Good morning, I'm Hazel Jarvis. I'm wearing my best snowflake sweater, so it must be time to paint another snow scene.
And here is our wonderful inspiration image, big sky scene from out west.
So here is our first version of this painting. And for this, you're going to want a palette because you'll need a lot of paint. You'll want your Doc Martens Bleed Proof White. It's really nice to have an extra brush that you can use just for scooping out the white. And also, if you have it, a little stub of candle wax is very fun for adding extra texture. So we're going to do a horizontal format, and we're going to start just with a light horizon line. Coming up to a peak and then just coming down very slightly. So I've mixed up a lovely sky colour, it's sort of apricot. It's the white with some orange and a tiny touch of vermilion, number 31 added. I start painting in the sky, going right up to the skyline. Then into my orange, or what's left over it, I make a sky colour. So I add some purple and I add some dark green and a little bit more white. And I don't worry about waiting till the sky is dry. And what you'll find is that as you paint, the paint is going to pick up a little bit of the paint underneath, and that's going to create some really interesting textures. With your specially designated white brush, you're going to touch in some white at the top of the cloud. And notice how the white gouache fuzzes and bleeds into the cloud below, which I really love. And then I take my finger actually and I just kind of encourage a little bit more movement and a little bit more blending. You can do this with a brush too, but the finger is handy. And we'll add just a tiny bit more darker colour into the base of some of the clouds. Back to the unorthodox finger use. If you want to, you can just fine-tune some of the edges with a nice brush, but up to you. I like this little sneak of white peering in at the top. So I use the white gouache with my watercolors just to get more texture, and it's much easier to get a nice interesting sky and you don't have to worry about streaking. I'm painting with a limited palette today, so I line my colors up at the top, although I know other colors will sneak in. I know myself. I want a nice rich color for my dark mountains, so here's my purple and my green mixed together. Just be sure those clouds are super dry before you paint in this dramatic mountain. You can always leave a tiny edge of white showing too. We'll take a little bit of our lighter cloud colour and just finish up over here. For our next layer of ground, I add some yellow ochre to my mix. See, it's slightly greeny. Now these hills are covered with snow, so we don't want to cover all of them, but we want to just get in a paler colour. Maybe a touch too dark. And we'll just get a pattern in on these. While we wait for that to dry, we're going to take our candle and we're just going to rub in or scratch in a little bit of candle wax into here, the sort of the foreground, and over here. So don't do too much, you just want a little bit because it's going to act as a mask or as a resist. I'm tilting the page and maybe you can see the light shining off the candle wax marks. For our next layer, which includes a lot of woods, we're just going to add a little bit more yellow ochre and a little bit of our Antwerp blue into the mix. And we quickly sketch in our trees. It's basically just holding your brush down and blobbing. For our next layer, we add more blue to the mix. Go a little bit darker, And we make our trees just a little bit bigger, but they're the same essential triangle. As you come across the page and you reach the bigger clump, you can make them a little bit bigger, and you can add some variation to their shape, some sideways strokes to suggest the branches. We don't want to end too abruptly, so we just sort of add a smaller one at the end. And you leave lots of white, lots of little keyhole spaces to see the snow behind. Our foreground is light. This is the area of interest because it has the strong contrast. So here we're just going to take our yellow ochre and we're going to run it across the foreground. And where we put the candle wax in, you can see it resists the paint. And our foreground over here has a little bit more wax added to it. Put in a little bit of colour, and we're going to wait for that to dry, and then we'll add some more snow on top. I think of these landscape sketches or these landscape paintings almost like quilts, so I want to reuse this lovely dark colour again. So it's basically an equal mix of the purple and the dark green, and I'm adding in some Fermoil fir trees. So moving them down and leaving some white space still, but just a few more trees. So these are just colour notes, but they help to give even more sense of distance and they push the landscape back. We're going to break up our foreground even more by adding a little bit of blue over some of the yellow ochre. And again, a little bit more blue. And we're going to finish off with some lovely long grasses. So you'll take your rigger brush and just draw in these grasses. And we finish up with our specially designated white brush and just some quick extra strokes of white. So here is your final finished landscape. So you now have a beautiful landscape with a wonderful internal colour harmony, and I hope you'll take some of the lessons from this class, and I can't wait to see what you do.